Happy Mother's Day. Welcome to the Truth Church Online. I'm Pastor Kevin Thomas, and we're glad that you joined us today on this very special day where we celebrate mothers. Not going to be very long today, but while you're here, why don't you, if you're watching this live at the truthchurch.online.church, why don't you greet one another, say hello down in our our online chat room. And also, let's do this. Let's change it up a little bit today. Let's hear from the Truth Church praise team first, and then we'll jump into the message. Not going to be long today. Want our mothers to celebrate their special day. So let's get to it. The Truth Church praise team.
Hi, Truth Church family and friends. Just here to remind you to be faithful in giving your tithes and offering. Remember, there are several ways you can give. You can give through Cash App or Zelle, or you can go to our website, get-truth.org, and you can give online. Again, just want to remind you, be faithful. We appreciate you. God bless.
Hey, I want to thank my team. Glad you're here. And just follow the links, click around, and you'll see, the giving button, the contact button, the chat room, and all that if you're watching live. But anyways, it's Mother's Day, and I'm excited. I'm watching the clock because I don't want to be long, because I want mothers to be able to enjoy your special day. Again, happy Mother's Day to you. And I want to come from an Old Testament passage, 2 Samuel 6. We were in that passage last week, but I want to continue on in that passage, and I want to talk about a woman in the Bible who never had a child. She was never a mother, to talk about Mother's Day. So that's a little different, but I believe it's going to help you. And even if you're a man or you're not a mother, I believe that today's passage is going to bless you. I want you to stay tuned through this, because I believe it's really going to bless you. There's some things that are very practical that we're going to give. But anyways, 2 Samuel, the 6th chapter, on this Mother's Day. Again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, mother figures, and future mothers. Happy Mother's Day. And of course, to our church mothers, I love you all. Happy Mother's Day to you. And to my own mother, I want to say happy Mother's Day. Anyway, 2 Samuel 16. Last week we got into this passage. I'm looking at the time, and but we got into this passage, and it was where David went to get the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant is symbolic of the presence of God. So he goes and gets the Ark of the Covenant, and he gets it from Abinadab's house. But Abinadab had two sons, Uzzah and Ahio, Ahio, not Ohio, all right? And Uzzah, on the way and transporting the ark, when the oxen almost upset the ark, it's just this cabinet, and that had some holy things in it. It almost fell over. Uzzah reaches out, he touches it. When he touches it, it says that the anger of God, because of his irreverence, came out against him, broke through against him, and he died on the spot. So David was afraid to take the ark into his home. And so then David decides he's going to leave it at Obed-Edom's house, the Gittites, and because he's afraid. He's angry with God. He's afraid with God. Go back and watch the previous broadcast, and you'll get that. But that's earlier in 2 Samuel 6. And then when we get down through that passage, it says because of the Ark of the Covenant, that God was blessing Obed-Edom. And so David gets jealous, or he hears about it, so he decides to go get it. And that's where we're going to pick up this passage today. And it says here in 2 Samuel 16, it says, "Then it happened as the ark of the Lord came into the city that Michal," some people say Michael, but Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart." And so what we see is Michal's disrespect and disdain. And so here's one of the things we can get out of this passage, because I really want to get deeper into this passage and bless you with the gist of what we see David model for us, is don't expect everybody to respect your love for God. So David is so excited when he gets the Ark of the Covenant. As he's bringing it into town, he's dancing and praising the Lord. And then Michal, one of his wives, she looks out and she sees him dancing, and she has a fit. Okay, she has a fit about it. And it says that she despised him in her heart. So as you're living for the Lord, as you're trying to live for the Lord, as you're trying to share about Jesus Christ, just don't expect everyone to respect your love for God. So here is this princess, Michal, and she doesn't even respect David's love for God, verse 17, I really want to get down through, if we can, verse 23. It says, "So they brought in the ark of the Lord and set in its place inside the tent which David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord." So David finally gets the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem and he worships God. Verse 18. When David had finished offering the burnt offering and the peace offering, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. So here we see in 2 Samuel 6 that he's blessing the people. All right. And then finally in verse 19, it says, "Further, he distributed to all the people, to all the multitude of Israel, both to men and women, a cake of bread, and one of dates, and one of raisins to each one. Then all the people departed to his house." And so what we see in verses 17 through 19 in 2 Samuel 6 is we see David's generosity. You know, he worships the Lord. He gives these offerings. Remember, that was something of value, just like how we give our tithes and our offerings. David was giving his offering. It cost him something in verse 17. And then he turns around in verse 19 and he blesses the people with what they need most, food. And during this pandemic, here with this COVID-19, one of the essential businesses was the grocery stores. So food is essential. So he's blessing the people with what they need, what is, or what was and still is essential. And so we see that. But now I want to look at, I want to jump down real quickly to the end of this verse passage in verse 23. And I want to read this because Michal is not happy with David, her husband, because David is praising the Lord publicly and she thinks he's made a spectacle of himself. And look at verse 23. It says, "Michal, the daughter of Saul, King Saul, had no child to the day of her death." Now, I just wanted to bring that passage forward because in that passage, it's essentially saying that God, essentially, this is her curse. This is her punishment for her attitude or her bad attitude, is that she didn't have any children. And to be a woman in ancient Israel at this, in ancient Israel, and not to have a child was a reproach. You read that a lot in the Bible where women that didn't have children, they're praying that God would remove their reproach by giving them a child, because for them, they felt that if they had a child, then they participated in the possibility that the Messiah would come through them or their line. And without a child, they're not participating. Reproach, just this embarrassment, this shame that she carried. And so it's amazing how important mothers are, that her punishment for being irreverent and not respecting the things of God is God did not allow her to become a mother. Okay. And so again, happy Mother's Day to all you mothers. That's how important motherhood is. And so now we can back up and look at 2 Samuel 6:20. Just got 3 more verses and break down some things. And then we're going to let you go eat today early. All right. And nobody ever complains about eating early. And so in Matthew 6:20, it says, "But when David returned to bless his household, Michal, the daughter of Saul." Now remember, he blesses the Lord in verse 17. He blesses the people in verse 19. And now he's done. King David is done with his work. He's returning home. It says, "But when David returned to bless his household, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said." Now this is Michal's sarcasm. I want you to see this. I want you to see how sarcastic she is. Now you might be quarantined in the house. You might be honoring the shelter-in order, or you just might be together. If you're watching this after 2020 and we've been through this, you just might be in the house with somebody. But there's really no place for sarcasm, especially when you're angry. It's very confusing. You're saying sarcasm is essentially a lie. And so you're saying exactly what you don't mean. And when people's emotions are already running high, that is not the time, especially for God's people, to be using sarcasm. We're supposed to be telling, where is it? The truth. There it is. We're supposed to be telling the truth, all right? But sarcasm is really the opposite of the truth. It's a lie. And so here's what she says to David when he walks in. How the king of Israel distinguished himself today. Now, she didn't mean that he did that. She's saying the exact opposite. She's saying you've embarrassed yourself today. And so she goes on to say how the king of Israel distinguished himself today. He uncovered himself today in the eyes of his servants' maids as one of the foolish ones shamelessly uncovers himself. So she starts off with sarcasm. Then she gets into what's really bothering her is that David, while he was praising the Lord, dancing for the Lord, he takes his, some of his outer garments off, and Miss Princess didn't like this, right? And so she starts off with this sarcasm. But look, here's where I really wanted to get to, and I think this is what's going to bless you today and tomorrow, next week, the rest of your life. This is really what blesses you, is look at David's gratitude for being chosen by God in 2 Samuel 6:21. So David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel. Therefore, I will celebrate the Lord." And so what I love about this is that David, she's saying, oh, you've uncovered yourself before these women that were in the procession on this parade bringing back the Ark of the Covenant. And David said, no, I didn't uncover myself in front of them. He says, my focus was on the Lord. So many times we're so busy looking around at who's watching us that we take our focus off the Lord, but not David. David had a lot of flaws, but his love for the Lord was definitely not one of his flaws. And that's one of the things that we can learn about we can learn from David, and we can learn about God, is that we can learn from David that David loved the Lord. David was a very flawed individual. He liked women way too much. He had a bad temper. I mean, you can just go on. If you just stop there, that was enough if you read David's story. And then, but what we can learn about God is that, Romans 6 says, shall we continue to sin that grace may, increase or abound, that God has to keep pouring grace on us? And it says, no, God forbid, no, we shouldn't. And so here's the point. God is very merciful because David was very flawed, but God labels David in the Bible as a man after his own heart. And that's really what God is looking at. He's looking at our heart. Our behavior counts too, so we can't excuse behavior. But what we can also remember is that God is very merciful, and really what he really wants is our heart in spite of our flaws. We should work, to eliminate those flaws, especially if they're sinful. But just remember that like David in 2 Samuel 6:21, that he was a man after God's own heart. And she says, oh, how you've distinguished yourself in verse 20. And she says, you've uncovered yourself. She's not even talking to him. Look how mean and nasty she was. She said, she's talking to David, and she's using third person rather than you uncovered yourself today. She says, he uncovered himself today in the eyes of his servants' maids. And David is telling her it was before the Lord who chose me. And don't you know that God chose you? And really, David is just very grateful. That's really what I want to talk about today, finally unveiling it, is that David was grateful because he says, God chose me above everybody else. Think of how many times God has chosen to bless you in a certain way or given you an assignment, and he could have chose anybody, but he chose you, and we need to show that gratitude. And so he goes on in verse 22. This is the last verse I'm going to share. Then I want to talk about gratitude a little bit. Then we're going to go and honor our mothers. But I want you to see David's understanding of his view of his self-image, his understanding or his view of his self-image in 2 Samuel 6:22. And now here's what David says, besides ending in verse 21 where he says, therefore I will celebrate the Lord. All right. He got that sister straight, didn't he? But verse 22, he says, I will be more lightly esteemed than this and will be humble in my own eyes. But with the maids of whom you have spoken, with them I will be distinguished. And so he understands his his self-image. He sees himself as he really is. He's saying, hey, I'm going to humble myself. He says, but these women that were in the parade with us bringing back the Ark of the Covenant, which symbolizes God's presence, he says, they're going to honor me. They're going to see me as distinguished because they understood that I wasn't uncovering for them, that I was uncovering before the Lord so that I could dance before the Lord. But I love this idea here that David just really gets it. And he's so grateful because he was, Jesse's youngest son out in the middle of the field when Samuel came looking for King Saul's successor. He wasn't even included. Samuel had to ask, where is, don't you have one more child? Where is he? And his dad, Jesse, had to invite him in, and he came in, he was dirty, he smelled like the farm, he smelled like sheep, and God chose him to be the king, all right? And so, we're thankful for all those good moms out there, and keep being a good mom. All right, and we're thankful for you. But let's look at some of the things that gratitude. David was so thankful, and that's what we need to practice right now. And I want to give you some benefits of practicing gratitude, just being thankful. Then I'll give you maybe a couple of ways or so that you can actually make this a habit. But gratitude reduces, listen to this, in the middle of this pandemic, here's what gratitude does. Gratitude reduces anxiety and depression. And so, people get all, anxious and concerned about what's going to happen. Anxiety a lot of times deals with what's going to happen in the future. And depression a lot of times deals with what's already happened in the past. But gratitude reduces anxiety and depression. So this is what I'm saying. Even if you're not a mother, this is where you can practice on this today, is that think about what you're thankful for those people that are around you, for what God has done for you, that you're in the house, that that you are safe, that you have food, that you had a place to sleep last night, because not everybody did. Not everybody has food. Even in the midst of having one of the absolute highest unemployment rates in our nation ever, God is still taking care of us. And so we can be thankful for what God is doing, but we can also be thankful for each other. We could be thankful for this broadcast. We could be thankful for that we have technology and that we can connect. We could be thankful, if you're watching this live, that you can chat with each other right now and say amen and encourage one another. And but not only that, but gratitude will reduce your blood pressure, and it reduces the symptoms of illness. It reduces the aches and pains even in our body just by being grateful. It boosts our immune system. And David was so grateful. Again, in 2 Samuel 6:21, he says, it was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house. In other words, he's saying God could have chose anybody, and I'm so grateful that he chose me. And so gratitude or thankfulness also, listen to this, it strengthens relationships. When you show your thankfulness toward each other, you're working on strengthening those relationships. You don't need to go away. I mean, it's good if you can go away. Well, we can't really go anyplace right now, but if you can go away to a counselor or some type of retreat or marriage retreat or anything like that, you don't always have to do those type of things. Those are good to do, but you could just show thankfulness. I mean, true gratitude. And I've been practicing gratitude for years. It makes such a big difference. Some days I think that that's what gets me through, is just trying to find something to be thankful for from the people that are around me, the people that have passed through my life, and also for what God is doing for me in the moment. And it doesn't mean that every day is easy for me, because it's not. The last 5 years have been, they've had their storms for me. But it was being thankful that has gotten me through, and it'll get you through too. And God wants us to be grateful. But it strengthens relationships. It helps people feel closer to one another. And also, if you're stuck in the house, if you're more grateful, the studies even show that it allows for a more fair distribution or division of work. In other words, grateful people help out more. Okay, and so if you want to focus on being grateful, you'll naturally help out more. And but listen to this, and thankfulness or gratitude also leads to forgiveness. It helps us to forgive, easier. Forgiveness is a hard process, but when we focus on being grateful for the things that are in life, the people that are in life, and what God is doing. I mean, just the fact that Jesus Christ went to the cross for us, that he died for our sins. We mess up and he paid the price. We could be grateful for that. And it helps us forgive others easier. Now, let me give you just 2 ways before we wish our mothers and future mothers and mother figures a happy Mother's Day one last time, is you can write a gratitude letter. Just think about somebody that you are, we can't really get out. And, when I say letter, maybe a text message, maybe email, maybe a letter. And, but let's just think about that you could write a gratitude letter to somebody and just tell them, it doesn't have to be long, what you're thankful for. And also, if you want to, you can include and what you're thankful for that God is doing for you. And that is therapeutic right now. And then another thing with each other, focus on good intentions, okay? Focus on what the person is trying to do, not necessarily always what they do or what they accomplish, but focus on their intentions. Because most people in our lives, they have good intentions for us. And sometimes we get sidetracked by looking at the results rather than looking at the intentions. In other words, we're looking at their hands rather than looking at their heart. And so that's why I said earlier that David was a man after God's own heart. And God couldn't always look at David's hands and see everything that David did, because sometimes David got his hands dirty, but David's heart was for the Lord. And so that's what we have to look at the people in our lives. If we want to be like God, we say, I can't always look at everybody's hands, the things that they do, but I have to look at their heart, that I know that this person loves me. I know this person's not trying to hurt me. I know that God has put this person in my life and that this person cares about me and that they are trying to do right. And so just focus on good intentions. And so again, just that gratitude, we're thankful to God for all the good moms that are out there, and those moms that are struggling to be good moms. Then let's come alongside of them and let's encourage them, because every child, no matter what their mom has done in the past, every child wants to have a good relationship with their mother, and they want to see their mother as a good mother. So it's never too late to be good, and it's never too late to be grateful. And so that's our practice on this Mother's Day and beyond, is that we're going to practice gratitude just like David did. Rather than getting in an argument with his wife, he instead focuses on how grateful he is for what God did in choosing him. And so with that, I am going to sit back, turn it over to Sister Robin, wish all of our mothers happy Mother's Day, all of our future mothers and our mother figures happy Mother's Day, and to my own mother, happy Mother's Day. And I love you, and I thank you, and I'm so grateful for you and all that you do for me. So have a happy Mother's Day. God bless you. Go in peace.
Friends, just here to remind you to be faithful in giving your tithes and offering. Remember, there are several ways you can give. You can give through Cash App or Zelle, or you can go to our website, get-truth.org, and you can give online. Again, just want to remind you, be faithful. We appreciate you. God bless.